On January 16th, 2022, the Dallas Cowboys took on the San Francisco 49ers in the first round of the NFL playoffs. Dallas was at home. They were favored to win, but with 32 seconds left, they were losing by 6 points and needing to score a touchdown in order to avoid crashing out of the playoffs. They started their final possession on their own 20-yard line. Quickly moving up the field with 14 seconds left, they found themselves on the Niners' 41-yard line. There was no timeouts remaining. Dak Prescott, the quarterback, snapped the ball, ran up the middle for 17 yards down to the San Francisco 24-yard line. The clock was ticking. 10, 9, 8. Would the Cowboys be able to get another play off before time expired? There are 7 officials in an NFL game. Their job is to enforce the rules of the game, and one of those officials is the umpire. Part of his responsibility is to correctly position or spot the ball following the end of a play prior to the next play. The umpire has to touch the ball before another play can happen. If he doesn't touch the ball, then the next play can't start. This is one of the rules of the game. Just like there are rules for every sport, and the successful teams know the rules and play by them, so every successful business has a clearly defined set of rules that they play by. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Your job as a construction company owner is to make the rules of the game that you are playing. Invite people, such as customers, project partners, and employees, to play that game, and then enforce the rules of the game. Think back for a moment to why you started your construction company. I would venture to bet that there were 2 reasons that were driving you. Number 1 is money. You saw that construction was an opportunity for you to create wealth for yourself. Number 2, it was freedom. You wanted to set your own rules and play your own game. So ask yourself at this moment, are you enjoying that freedom? Construction is tremendously risky. If you own a construction company, you personally guarantee the contracts that you sign. And with this combination of risk and responsibility, it only makes sense that you get to make the rules of the game of business that you are playing. If you do this well, you will reap the rewards of winning. If you don't do a good job of designing your game and making the rules of that game and playing that game, it's going to cost you. First thing you need to do is you need to make the rules. Second thing is you invite people to play the game that you've designed. And the third thing you do is you enforce those rules. So let's talk about that. First thing you need to do is make the rules of the game. Every construction company has to win work, build work, and then it has to get paid for that work. Your job as a construction company owner is to define specifically how your company is going to do that. What are the rules of the game that you are playing? You design it by clearly defining how it is that you and the people in your organization are going to show up every day, how they're going to behave. And your processes are the rules of the game, the steps that must be followed. And every great business has clearly defined processes that the leadership in the business follows and that they teach their people to follow. And when you're not following the processes, you are not playing the game right. You are breaking the rules. When you are creating the processes of your business, when you're making those rules, they apply to your customers, they apply to your project partners, including vendors, and they apply to your employees. So you must do a lot of hard work making the rules both process-based and culturally based that define how you win, build, and get paid for the projects that you complete. Once you've made the rules, you then invite 3 groups of people to play: your customers, your employees, your project partners. One of the wonderful things about being in business is that it is a matter of free will. Everyone has to work, but not everyone has to work with you. And that's a wonderful thing. Neither do you have to work with everyone. You've started your business for freedom, and you can pick and choose who you'd like to work with. Massimo Vignelli, I probably mispronounced that, was an interior designer and a graphic designer. If you remember the classic designs of the New York subway, that very simple map, that was a Massimo design. And he had something to say about customers. One thing which you have to learn is never work for a bad client. Because from a bad client, the next one will be worse. So you work for a good client. The next one will be better, no matter what. Even if you're hungry, even if you're desperate, never work for a bad client, because it is a waste of time. When you're inviting people to play your game, clearly define to them, this is what needs to happen before the project starts, this is what's going to happen during the project, and this is what will happen after the project. You must make those rules, because I'll tell you this, you are playing somebody's game. And if you get stuck playing your customer's game, and you might right now be stuck playing your customer's game, think about how much stress that causes you, how much time you waste doing that, how much money that costs you. So always strive to work with A clients who are willing to play your game. But do your clients the courtesy of clearly creating that game and communicating to them how you do business and how they will do business with you. A clients pay on time, they communicate well, they're not out to hose you. You should spend 70 to 80% of your time working with those A clients. Now, you may have to work with B clients, but always factor in the cost of working with them into your bids and eliminate the C clients, the late payers, the folks who are always looking to hose you at the end of the project to cut your margins. Don't do business with them. Now, let's talk about your employees. The interview process should begin the conversation of the rules of the game. You must set clear expectations from the beginning of how, if you're going to work in our company, we play the game of construction. And it's better to be honest about your culture and your processes and how you play than to misrepresent that in order to land an employee. And describe your culture by telling them stories. And I'm going to give you a quote later on, an example of this that I think you'll find quite interesting. And when you're describing the role and responsibility that they'll be executing, give them an example of 1 or 2 of the processes that define your game that are essential to their success, and let them know how those must be executed. Your interview process should be like a funnel, where you are inviting people into that funnel, so to speak, and you are exploring with them whether or not they are a fit in your organization. And as you are describing the rules of the game to them, some of them may think, you know what? I don't want to work here. It's not a fit for me. And that is perfectly okay. It is better to get an honest no from someone in the interview process than to get a half-hearted yes bring that person on board and end up letting them go 6 months to a year down the road? Think about your project partners. So you've got to define the game to them very clearly. And again, this is a matter of communicating processes and holding them accountable for those processes. If you're a general contractor and you're talking to your subs, you'll communicate to them, this is how we handle change orders. These are our safety standards on our job site. This is what we insist upon. And you will be consistent in communicating how you play that game. The same goes from subs to GCs. You may get a project with a GC or an owner and they're just not that good. And I just want to encourage you, if the GCs are not willing to play your game in terms of scheduling, in terms of communication, make a note of that. You may have signed a contract and be committed to that project, but ask yourself this question: do I want to do work with them on the next project? If they're not willing to play by your game, then are they an A client that you should work with? Remember, nobody has to play your game. It's a free will choice. But if you're going to build a business that you enjoy working in, you must design that game and discipline yourself to play it. So we've talked about making the rules and inviting people to play. And now we're going to get to the hardest part, which is enforcing the rules of the game. You can create the best game in the world. You can be crystal clear on the rules. You can invite people into the game, but it always seems that there's people who like to break the rules of the game. And so there's a cost to enforcing the rules of the game, and that cost is pain. And see, there's two types of pain that you can experience in business. The first is the pain of discipline, and that's a short-term pain that you have to embrace when you're holding people accountable for playing according to the rules. The second pain is the pain of regret that you experience when you don't play the game correctly, and as a result of that, you lose time and money, and you gain stress and anguish. The pain of discipline doesn't last that long. The pain of regret lasts a long time. So you have to be ready when you are enforcing the rules for people to reject you. Your goal in life is not to be liked. Your goal in life is to be effective and successful. If you are effective and successful in your business, and you approach it with high ethical standards, and you hold people accountable for playing by the rules of the game that you've created, you may not be liked, but you will be respected. You have to get ready for that rejection, and you have to not get stuck playing other people's games. One of the great benefits of creating an excellent game in your business is that you give people room to enter the game, but also to exit the game. If they don't want to play, it's okay. But we're not going to change the rules of the game for your benefit. These are the rules. This is what I know works. This is how we're going to play. That is the perspective that you need. Let me say it in another way. It's okay for you to take your ball and go home if people are not willing to play by your rules. So we've taken a look at those three things. Make the rules of the game, invite people to play, and then enforce the rules. And the way you enforce the rules is just by having accountable conversations with people, following up with them, making sure that your clients, your project partners, and your employees are playing by the rules that you've created. And you might say, in my market, Eric, I have to play by other people's rules. Perhaps you're in a hard bid environment and you have to follow the rules of that bid. You've got government regulations, and I understand all of that. But think about is, what is it that you control, where you have freedom and liberty to create the rules? Focus in on what you can control, and there, in that place of control, create the rules of the game, because that's where you'll find the freedom that you're looking for, that freedom being the whole reason you started your business in the first place. It wasn't just to make money. but it was for that sense of freedom. So keep working towards as much freedom as possible. Keep in mind that you're the one taking the risk, you're the one taking on the responsibility, and do whatever you can to assert as much control as you can. Let me give you an example from my own career. Back in 2004, I started selling a leadership development program. And the sales process for selling that program was extremely rigorous. And it included an unusual step in the sales process. And let me explain it to you. I would meet with the CEO of a company, explain to them the leadership program, and at the end of the presentation, make them an offer. And this was the offer. I'll come in and do a 2-hour preview seminar for you and your leadership team. I normally charge $2,000 for this seminar, but I'll waive the fee in exchange for 3 conditions. Those conditions are all decision makers being present while I'm conducting the seminar, uninterrupted time with no distractions while the seminar is going on. And again, this is a live in-person seminar for 2 hours. And at the end of the 2 hours, you can have as much time as you like to discuss whether or not you want to participate in the 12-month leadership program that I was selling, but you must give me a yes or no answer that day before I leave. And if you're willing for those 3 conditions, then I'll waive my $2,000 fee and come in and do the workshop or the seminar. These were the rules of the game that I was playing. Now, sometimes when I laid out these rules to people, they'd say, you know what, Eric, I'm not interested in that. And I would say, okay, no problem. I'll just go find someone who wants to play by my rules. And there was an additional step to that process that I had, to the rules of my game. And this was the step. On the day of the seminar, I would meet with the decision maker prior to conducting the in-person seminar and reconfirm our agreement to uninterrupted time, all decision makers being present, and then following the seminar, you give me a yes or no answer before I leave. These were the rules of the game. And if they wavered in that commitment to those 3 conditions, then you know what I would do is I wouldn't conduct the seminar. Now, believe me, this process caused me a great deal of discomfort. But what I learned over time is if I was courageous enough to stick by my process and not give in to someone else's process, it not only benefited me, but it also benefited my client. And I became one of the all-time most successful salespeople in that company. And not only that, but a tremendous amount of great companies in the area where I was selling were able to benefit from the leadership program. I was willing to stick by my process, play my game, invite people to play. If they didn't want to play, it was no big deal. But if they did play, this is the way we're going to do that. Let me give you another example. I'm going to read you a quote from Netflix. We're a team, not a family. We're like a pro sports team, not a kids' recreational team. Netflix leaders hire, develop, and cut smartly so we have stars in every position. Think about that as a statement in the hiring process and a statement of the rules that we play by. We're a competitive team, and we look to hire, develop, and cut smartly. Think about those rules, those cultural rules that drive Netflix, and how people who are being interviewed get confronted by that culture, and they then have a choice of whether or not they're going to play. And for some people, the Netflix culture is not a fit for them, and that's fair enough. It doesn't make them bad people. But if they're not willing to play by those rules, then Netflix is not for them. Okay. There's many benefits in developing and playing a disciplined game of business. Your company runs well. Your employees are happier. Your customers are ultimately happier. Your time isn't wasted doing stupid stuff. Your stress is reduced. More money is made. So make the rules, invite people to play, and then enforce the rules. Back to the game between the Cowboys and the Niners. Dak Prescott The Cowboy QB ran down the field. The seconds ticked by. He was right there near the 49ers end zone, needing one more play to see if they could score. And he handed the ball to his center. That was a mistake. Remember the rule that we talked about. The umpire has to touch the ball after the play ends prior to the next play starting. And so you saw this comical situation where the umpire was running up, doing his job, bashing through the offensive line to spot the ball, and then Dallas is able to snap it, but it's too late. The clock expires, and Dallas loses the game. Perhaps they would have been able to get off one more play and win if they had followed the rules of the game. So think about some next steps for you. Number one, ask yourself, whose game am I playing? Mine or one of my employees or one of my clients or one of my project partners? Number two, take time to define your game. The rules of how you do business, how you bid work, how you plan work, how you build it, how you're going to get paid, and put that into processes that you hold people accountable for. And then finally, number three, be willing to accept the pain of discipline as you enforce the rules of your game, knowing that as you embrace that pain of discipline, you will reap the rewards both financially and in terms of the emotional impact upon you. Never forget, you started your business for freedom. Don't allow people to steal that freedom from you. Appreciate you listening to this episode of Construction Genius. If you're a construction company business owner and you need help designing or playing this game of business, reach out to me on my website. There'll be a link in the show notes, constructiongenius.com. And if you found this episode helpful, I would appreciate it if you would share it with other people. My name again is Eric Anderton. Thank you for listening today, and I wish you the best in creating and playing your game. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private, invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.